What is going on, everybody? Today I have a very interesting video topic for you, and that is why I believe that the specifically rock and metal industry needs somebody like Ronnie Radke right now. Ronnie Radke might be exactly the personality needed to actually keep rock and metal alive. And also, before I hop into the topic of today's video, I'd like to give a massive disclaimer. And that's that I don't agree or condone everything that Ronnie Radke says or does. I do see, though, that he's passionate about being an entertainer, and I think that he has leaned into his villain era, I guess we could say, of being an entertainer. I also want to say that I am not defending any of the negative actions that Ronnie Radke has ever done in his life. This video is completely detached from Ronnie Radke on a personal level, but rather an analytical breakdown of his music career and why I believe he achieved fame and relevancy in his band Falling in Reverse, and why I believe that is collectively helping the rock and metal genre coming back into relevancy with not only younger fans, but also to musically excel the genre forward in helping new bands break through into the mainstream and put out some great music, keeping rock and metal healthy and thriving and able to have a prosperous future as a genre of music as a whole. Hey, real quick, before I jump into this video, if you're interested in private guitar instruction with yours truly online, my email is in the link in the description below. Just shoot me an email, state your case, and I will get back to you. Also, don't forget to sign up for my free monthly newsletter, free written guitar lesson every month, as well as access to all of my tabs. Link in the description and pinned comment as well. Back to the video. So let's first talk about Ronnie Radke's kind of career prior to this and kind of my perception of him growing up before he even became who he is now. So Ronnie Radke always was kind of a polarizing figure even before he was as famous as he is now. I remember in high school, there was a group of bands that I would consider to be basically the big four of post-hardcore bands, okay? And those bands were Sleeping with Sirens, Pierce the Veil, Black Veil Brides, and Falling in Reverse, okay? Falling in Reverse, actually, I would have considered to be the smaller band out of the other three at the time. But obviously that's all changed now, right? And to be honest, maybe I'm out of touch by saying this, but I haven't really heard much from Black Veil Brides since. I haven't really seen much from Sleeping with Sirens or Pierce the Veil. So Falling in Reverse seems to actually be really the band that kind of ended up triumphant out of those four bands from the last 10 years. So I find it very interesting how the tables kind of flipped like that, because when I was in high school, I truthfully wasn't really into those bands. I kind of looked at them as uncool to listen to because I was into a lot of heavy music at the time and was listening to like Born of Osiris and The Human Abstract and Periphery and Veil of Maya and like a bunch of like really, really heavy stuff. So when I was in high school, you know, pretty much if it had singing in it, I didn't even want to listen to it. So I considered it like poser music, which is kind of funny how you do those things when you're a kid and then you get older and you're just like, that was dumb. So basically, I don't agree with everything Ronnie Radke says or does. I don't condone by any means anything he says or does, but I definitely can see that at least he has passion, whether we agree or not. And I think this is good for the genre because to me, out of kind of the 2020 era, Falling in Reverse kind of came out of nowhere. I actually thought they were a dead band for a while. And I was like, I guess they died out with the rest of the post-hardcore bands and no one's ever to be found again, right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Ronnie Radke basically catapulted Falling in Reverse into not only the spotlight, but as one of the biggest rock bands of the era and kind of carving a way for a newer generation of fans, which I see as a very positive thing. And I honestly feel like he was primarily able to achieve this through his personality and the things that he says online to people. And a part of this image for him kind of comes from being a rebel, okay? So I think rock and metal music have actually really lost the sense of rebellion in a lot of ways and essentially just pissing people off. Because that's what it used to do at one time. And I always kind of go by this motto, and this is no shade to anybody age demographic wise, but I think it's actually kind of a reasonable motto to look at and when you're looking at relevancy of a genre. And it's pretty much as simple as if your parents hate it, it's probably good music and relevant right now. Meaning it might not be good to them, but to somebody younger who's trying to get into the space, it really sounds good to that person and they really like it. You know what I mean? And I think rock and metal has kind of lost that in at least the last 10 years, maybe longer, frankly. Because I know, like, my dad loves a lot of the bands that I like. Even if they're newer bands, okay? So, like, I'll give you another example. When I was a kid, I was really into Green Day. Billy Joe Armstrong was, like the singer that I emulated a lot of his vocal stuff like, and I really enjoyed that band. Well, then it turns out so does my parents enjoy that band. So, of course, what does that drive me to? Well, I want to, get into harder music that they don't like, right? Which is kind of how I got into the deathcore and the gent stuff and the death metal stuff later in my life. And then that was like, my dad kind of tapped out. He's like, I hate this music. And I'm like, perfect. So I think that's been lost, though, because obviously as we all get older, right, that music stays with us. So now you have younger, parents that actually like that music. So it's kind of like, where's the envelope getting pushed, right? Like I know dads now that love death metal, which, depending on the era, right? Like some people hate the screaming, some people love the screaming, but I know now as we all get older, it's become a lot more accepted in the genres of music, obviously taking it out of the mainstream quite a lot as well. But I think it kind of shows us like, okay, so what's the next kind of rebel thing? So this kind of actually diverts me into what I believe has become rebellion music, and that would be hip hop, okay? Now, many of you that don't know, who watch the channel, I actually am a huge rap fan, R&B fan. I like pretty much all music, to be honest. Obviously, I'm primarily a guitar player, which is why I mostly make guitar, rock, metal-centric videos, but I actually am a huge rap fan. So I definitely see a correlation in my own listening when I do A-B comparisons, right? And the one thing I've noticed, and I think most people could probably agree, is that rappers pretty much took rebellion to the nth degree possible. Meaning right around the 80s, right, you had celebrities like Vince Neil, Axl Rose, who were kind of very polarizing figures in themselves with that kind of bad boy edge to them. And maybe occasionally they'd even get arrested for something, right? And that was considered edgy. Maybe, Vince Neil had the whole wanting to fight Axl Rose kind of thing going on, the beef on MTV. And that actually was something that helped their careers stay relevant, believe it or not. Because as much as people say it's stupid, it actually keeps them relevant because people eat up the drama, right? So, of course, you see a change during this time because if you thought that was a really compelling thing, well then, of course, only a few years after the fact, we would see Tupac and Biggie and people just straight up killing each other over beef, which literally is the maximum extent you could ever take beefing with an artist to. That is a horrible thing, by the way, and not saying that's good at all. But if you're doing an A-B comparison, you could obviously see which one would eventually take the limelight over the other. To some extent, the rocker dudes just could not compete in terms of rebellion and offensiveness, we could say, compared to the rappers, because rappers literally didn't care about just pulling guns on each other and shooting at each other. Obviously, that's kind of tamed a little bit now in the newer parts of the rap genre developing over the last 15 years, I would say, that the kind of rap beefs where people actually are dying has kind of chilled out just a little bit, which is obviously a positive thing. But I think that that hard image has remained, meaning that people view the rappers now as the rebellious, anti-establishment ones, whether you disagree or agree with it or not. And it kind of put the rock people on the back burner just a little bit. Let's go back to maybe 2010 or so. We could even say a little bit later, maybe even 2013. At first, if they were kind of going in this line graph direction where rock was here and rap was here, eventually you see one of them cross and surpass the other in terms of popularity. And I think this really remains just because the youth grabs on to what they think their parents don't like. Well, here comes Ronnie Radke. In a time where rock was essentially taking a back seat to the mainstream and basically kind of doing subgenre sounds, stuff with screaming in it, not typical types of pop singing, but more kind of the pop punk emo kind of singing going on, mixed with screaming and heavier riffs. The music already kind of wasn't mainstream, obviously, right? People had to grasp on to just a newer sound in general and accepting that. And obviously now we hear that kind of music on the radio, but at that time, you definitely did not hear that music on the radio. So Ronnie Radke, before he even is who he is now, has already been to prison for a couple things, okay? Now, I believe, he went to prison actually for violating a parole he was on. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was for. And I'm not going to really comment on his prison stint, obviously, or any of his charges or anything like that. That's not really what the video is about in terms of his personal life, but in terms of his image, you can obviously see how the competition starts with this guy being one of the most edgy people in rock automatically by already serving time in prison at the same time that he's in a very popular band, right? And now let's look at another thing Ronnie Radke has in common with, I guess we could say, the thug life rapper kind of point of view here, which is that he also has a bunch of face tattoos. And I think this is actually a big one, and I know that shouldn't be a big one. And keep in mind, guys, here in this video, I'm talking mainly about image, right? I'm not really talking about the music so much. The music's always going to be subjective, right? I'm, making this video, I'm not really a huge Falling in Reverse fan, but I think I can respect that they've, worked for kind of the spot that they've gotten in recent years. But I think looking at Ronnie Radke's image, right, with the face tattoos as well, this is surprisingly, no matter how you look at it, kind of a big deal. Because that alone, in terms of image itself, kind of started making rapper guys look like they were hardened or maybe very edgy, right? We saw a whole boom of the Soundcloud rap scene in the late 20-teens going into the 2020s. And all of a sudden you just see every single person coming out of SoundCloud with face tattoos and everything, right? Now, again, not saying that I agree or disagree with that in any way, but you see an obvious change of edginess to the culture, right? I think Ronnie Radke essentially keeping up with the times has also made him preserve his own image in the space as an edgy rock star. Now, Ronnie Radke, at the same time, is when I feel like you start seeing bands kind of not put themselves in the limelight as much as they used to. I think the bands, and to their credit, actually wanted to do stuff just for the music, right? And that's a great thing, honestly. It should always be about the music first and foremost, which I think it still is, but obviously image does take precedent over a lot of things. And I think you start noticing during that time where you start seeing the SoundCloud boom with rap music and emo rap, you start seeing bands kind of go the opposite way where they just want it to be about the music. They're not really as much about the image and putting themselves in the spotlight like the rock stars of the 80s and the 90s. And I think because of that is part of the reason why the edge was kind of taken off of the genre a little bit. It's like, yes, the music can still be hard. Yes, some of the bands can still write like edgy material, but I think a lot of it was viewed as getting softer. I know that sounds kind of weird to say because like some of these bands were literally super heavy musically, but I think their image was viewed as like, oh, rock is softer, right? So someone like Ronnie Radke comes out, he's got the look, right? He's got the face tats, he's literally served time in prison. He's literally plays in a heavy band that has an edgy sound, and on top of this, all of a sudden he goes on the internet and just says whatever he wants. Really, my point with this is that he has catapulted not only his band and his image into the spotlight, but also by doing this is actually giving the genre as a whole, again, some pretty hardcore relevancy, to the point where I think it actually paves a way for some newer artists to take after this and use the spotlight and kind of essentially catapult their own music and maybe even take a hint from Falling in Reverse and what they've done to rise to stardom. There was a time where you'd really only see guys in their 20s, rising to stardom and stuff like that in the mainstream, and usually by the time they're 30, their career could be over sometimes. And I think now is where you started seeing a flip in the entire music industry in general, not just rock and metal, where the average age of an artist is 35 years old. And if you want to check that out, actually, Rick Beato did a video on it, basically going through all the Billboard 100 artists of the year or something like that, and pretty much just doing an average on age, and the average age came out to be 35 years old, which I think Ronnie Radke is maybe 34 or something like that. I could be wrong. So it's like, yeah, he's technically not in a new band, right? But by his actions and the things he's done, he's mastered the internet. He's mastered the image of being a frontman in a famous band. He's mastered becoming a celebrity. He's mastered becoming an entertainer, and he's mastered becoming a musician to a lot of extents, whether you like his music or not. And I think these 5 things that he's got going for himself have really been the reason why Falling in Reverse has had the success that they've had, while, of course, polarizing people, but also drawing in people that love their music, right? There was a pretty huge video that just came out this week of Ronnie Radke scolding a fan that went on stage and, basically, in his words, ruined their performance or whatever. Not everyone is going to like what he says, right? But I think because he's not afraid to say those things and just be the guy that he's become, in a sense, even maybe leaning into being a villain himself, is the reason why he has made his band so popular, and why, whether you love it or hate it, his band is pretty much the #1 band right now. Of course, numbers-wise, like I could statistically be wrong on that, but his band is up there. They're pretty close to the #1 band right now in rock and metal. And I think, again, whether you like his music, whether you like him or not, I think there's something to take away from it in a positive manner, regardless of, even though he's perceived to be a negative guy from time to time. So, with that being said, I realize that I'm sure there's going to be people that let me know if they like this video or not. Let me know what you think about my A-B comparisons. I'm just the guy that, analyzes the music industry and has been a part of it a lot in my own life, and I enjoy doing these analytical breakdowns of kind of how I see things going. So, do you disagree? Do you agree? Leave it in the comments below. And again, if you want guitar lessons or keys lessons or voice or bass lessons from yours truly, I have a link in the description below. Email me. My email is also in the pinned comment. And don't forget to sign up for the free monthly newsletter. I will see you all on the next one.